Hello, my name is Richard Drew. I'm a production designer in film and TV, and you're listening to the 80s Archive podcast.
Welcome to another edition of the 80s Archive podcast, a deep dive into the world of TV, film, and music. This week, we talk to a man whose career has spanned over 30 years as a set designer, art director, and producer for a vast array of TV programmes, including Grange Hill, Man Down, Ricky Gervais's After Life, and Steve Coogan's This Time with Alan Partridge, to name but a few. He has now started to do live events to promote his career, an evening with, as it were. He also deserves a massive shout out as he's been a huge advocate for our show and a true friend from the beginning. I am, of course, talking about the one and only Mr. Richard Drew. Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm very, very well, John. Very well. Thank you.
That was
Thanks
a
for that
complete
lovely
lie.
introduction.
Everything I said on that intro was a
Well, the
lie.
producer thing's a bit of a curveball because I don't know that I'm a producer, but I'll take it. I'll take it.
Have you produced things to make other things look better?
Oh yes,
Well,
yes.
there you're a
I am
producer.
a producer. Yes.
Yeah, not in the TV based sense, as it were. But we digress. Richard, I'm really happy to have you on the show. We've spoken for about a year now, just on and off on the phone and WhatsApp bants and what have you. And it's only sort of getting to know you that I've realised how illustrious your career has been and some of the people that you've worked with. Richard, tell us about your origin story. Where did you grow up? Where did you come from?
Oh wow! So I'm originally from Gloucester, which in the West Country. My mum was from Chepstow, and so that's where I was sort of born. We moved around a lot. I moved around a lot as a very young kid because my dad was in the army and blah blah blah. So they moved around here, there, and everywhere. So up to the age of 4, I think I'd lived in about 4 or 5 different places, including Germany, because my dad was stationed in Germany. So that's sort of late 60s. I was born in 67, and then 1970, 71, we moved to Rainham in Essex, which is not a million miles from you, I guess.
No, Crazy
Um,
Beat Records, man. Crazy Beat
yeah,
Records.
absolutely. So, and that is pretty well. My mum and dad are still there, so I very much consider myself an Essex boy, I suppose, as a badge of honour. I basically fell in love with theatre, the Queen's Theatre in Hornchurch.
I've
I
played
joined
it, yeah.
yeah, I joined the youth theatre in 1979. In fact, I went to see the first show that they ever put on there in 76, which was Jesus Christ Superstar. So I remember going, and that was me as a 9-year-old and just being, oh wow, this is amazing. This bright sort of brutalist spaceship that sort of landed in Hornchurch
Yeah.
and kind of went to that and then joined the youth theatre in 79, stepped on a stage in 1979, professional stage for the first time because I was doing I got a cast in the sort of local panto that they used to each year, and they used to get local kids to be in the chorus,
Hmm.
and I auditioned and I got selected to be one of a chorus of 10 kids to be in this show. Stepped on the stage 1979 for the first time, a professional stage, 500 empty seats in front of me. And if there was a Wes Anderson shot of me and a light bulb landing above me, that would be it. I just suddenly had that moment. I thought, God, I really like this. I like
Yeah.
this. This feels very much at home.
You caught the bug.
I caught the bug, and I can absolutely remember what side of the stage I came on from. I can remember everything about it like it was
Mm.
yesterday. And I was instantly caught by what was going on in the wings. I was very aware of, oh, right, that's what the back of scenery looks like. And,
Yeah.
oh, right, there's a rope there. That pulls up. Even at a very young age, I kind of understood, oh, right, that's the mechanics of it. And I would have said, yeah, 1979, 1980, bing, light bulb. Right, I really like this. Fast forward to 1983, and I knew at the age of 16 that's what I was going to do in my life. I made my mind up by then
Mm.
that I wanted to get into designing, probably theatre. Didn't really know any idea how I was going to do it, but I did. And then very, very quickly, I did sixth form college, Barking College of Technology, which is still there in Romford. It's now got a different name, but I went there for a year. I went to Worthing, where I now live, oddly, to study theatre design. I went to film school for 2 years straight after that in Newport in South Wales. And I started in BBC Wales on the 8th of August, all the 8th of the 8th, 88, BBC Wales. That's where I started my career.
Wow. Okay. So you've answered about 27 of my questions in one there, which is excellent. No worries. So this interview will be about 8 minutes long. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's almost a sense of arrogance. I mean, I grew up in the theatre and I did a lot of theatre and what have you. And as much as I enjoy writing for theatre, that's kind of where my passion lay. Um, I did like the producing side of things and the beat, and I've done a bit of stage management as well. And there was just something wonderful about having that set of cans on with that little mic and holding a clipboard and going, no, 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 no. It doesn't matter who the actor is. No, 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 no. You ain't going anywhere until I've told you. And there was that sort of sense of purpose, wasn't there? You know.
Well, I think I mean, I had aspirations to maybe be an actor. That's not, because I mean, when you're a kid and like in the 70s watching TV, I mean, I was a Teddy addict. I mean, I was properly obsessed. In fact, my parents, if I was naughty, they used to send the TV back to the rental company because
Oh, no
yeah.
way.
So that was for me, that was the ultimate punishment, me being without a television.
Two bob a week.
2 bob a week. So I kind of, I was obsessed with, probably TV, maybe more than film.
Well, I want to come on
And
to that. Yeah, sorry, I want to come on to that. I mean, who were your sort of? I mean, we all grew up. A lot of us grew up in a world of watching people like Magnum PI or Bergerac or Doctor Who. And who were your sort of TV characters or actors, as it were, that really sort of you thought, oh wow, I want to be like them one day, or I want to work with them.
well, I sort of would go with something like Shoestring. I used to absolutely
Yeah.
adore as a kid. So that's sort of late 70s, 79, 80. In fact, you mentioned Bergerac. I worked on Bergerac in 1990, and same creator, wasn't it? Bob Banks Stewart, I think.
Yep.
So, and George Fenton did the music. There's the same music.
I seem to recall an episode of Shoestring where there was a Scalextric set that was
Oh, I remember.
due
Yes, I
to
did
blow
remember
up.
that. Was it a Christmas episode?
It was a Christmas episode,
Did it
yeah,
catch
and
fire?
it's
It was
yeah,
a dodgy,
it was
dodgy
a
electric set.
dodgy Scalextric set bought off
Yeah.
a bloke in a market from a donkey
That's it.
jacket.
Well, there was also bit of a double edge with this because Shoestring was shot in Bristol, and occasionally they went over the River Severn, and they shot an episode not far from my nan's. In fact, my mum's in Chepstow. So there was this kind of sense watching it, and I always used to watch it with mum that, oh God, they could be filming near Nan's. I just had
Yeah,
that vague notion. So that was a thing. I used to watch MASH with my dad. So if Shoestring was with mum, then MASH was with dad. Now, don't tell me to name any of the characters in MASH because I couldn't even begin, but I used to love MASH. I thought it was and actually, the older I get, the more I appreciate. I just think it was a fabulous, fabulous show. And it was one of those things because it was very rare that my dad was in. My dad did a lot of night shifts and stuff. So it was one of those things I sort of watched with dad, that and war films. I mean, dad and I used to sit and watch war films. Mum, Bergerac and Shoestring, and maybe a couple of other shows. But I would always do musical. I would sit and watch a musical with my mum.
yeah.
So yeah, they were the kind of thing. And obviously that growing up in the 70s, I mean, it's pretty obvious and classic to say, but it's the two Ronnies, Morecambe and Wise, the Muppets, Starsky and Hutch, early 80s, obviously Cagney and Lacey, which I used to love.
Oh, it's got the best theme tune ever.
Yeah, no, amazing.
Yeah.
So, it's all those kind of, the staples of BBC One on it. We were very much a BBC family, not an ITV family.
Yeah, yeah. You weren't common.
That's such a weird thing, but I think it's very, 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 very true. A few years down the line, I get to work with people who worked on those shows.
Of course, and that's
for me, I in fact, Bobby, who's a prop buyer that I've worked with on and off over my long career, Bobby worked on Are You Being Served? And it was just like, oh God, this is amazing. I'm now mixing with people that I grew up watching what they did for a living. I'm now mixing with these people.
Well, the funny thing is about Are You Being Served is a lot of people sort of see it very much as a 70s sitcom, but it ran until 1985.
So 1980 started, and I'm 12. I'm going to be 13 in March of 1980. So I'm a kid at the beginning of the 80s, and by the end of the 80s, I'm working in TV.
Yeah.
So in that 10 years of that's it's it's extraordinary actually, from going from a 12-year-old to a 22-year-old working in telly.
fish meat. She used to drink in the hills, only now she drinks in the valleys, where every road has a name like Beechwood Avenue, or so it seems. A Croydon girl could really hope to find a home, but with 1,000 miles of real estate to choose from, you begin to see the value of your freedom.
Screen Kiss, Thomas Dolby. Tell us why you chose that one, Rich.
I think it's one of the greatest love songs ever written.
Wow, okay.
Nobody ever mentions it. It's one of those, it's an album track. I saw Thomas Dolby live in '84. I saw them twice in a week. And actually, the second time we saw them, me and my mates, we saw them was because one of your old guests, Fiat Lux, was supporting.
Oh, good old Fiat Lux, yeah.
And we were big fans of Fiat Lux. So I think they might have supported them twice. So basically, we wanted to go and see them because Fiat Lux was supporting the second time. I think the first time we saw him Decadence, I think, with the support act. But we were obsessed. We were obsessed with the Golden Age of Wireless, me and my mates. And then the Flat Earth came out in '84. And, you know, I Scare Myself is on that. And I think Hyperactive's on it. But Screen Kiss is just a beautiful piece of music. And I think it's an absolute lost classic. I think it's just perfect. And it's an ode to old cinema. And I suppose there's, you know, but I just think it's a beautiful piece of work.
Nice. Yeah, I remember watching some years ago. There were Pink Floyd, The Wall, live, and I think it was for like a 30th anniversary tour, possibly, or maybe a 25th anniversary tour.
Yeah.
And Thomas Dolby was playing the teacher.
Oh wow!
And so he was strapped to the back of the stage with these elongated arms.
Yeah.
And he was playing the teacher that obviously puts them all in the mincer and stuff like that. Yeah, really, he's quite an eccentric guy, I can imagine. But yeah.
Well, he lives on a boat. He lives somewhere in the Norfolk, and he's recording studios on a barge at the end of his garden.
Wow.
Kind of thing. But no, he's brilliant, and I think well, actually, because I know you're a Thompson Twins fan, but he had Matthew Seligman play with him on that tour, and we met him after the Dominion show. Me and my mates hung about backstage, as you did, and we had a little chat with him. But I had a fairly decent chat with Matthew Seligman, and actually he was talking about how he got fired from the Thompson Twins. But I just thought it was brilliant. And then he cropped up supporting, playing with Bowie at Live Aid. That he was there, and he was obviously produced Prefab Sprout. I mean, he's quite an extraordinary musician. Yeah.
Brilliant. There's an album he did in '88 called Aliens Ate My Buick.
Fabulous album.
Right. Nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
And that's what I find amazing. And I discovered it purely based on its cover art, because it is designed to look like a 50s B movie.
Correct.
Schlock kind of, you know, but it was just what a superb album from start to finish.
No, he's amazing. He's truly amazing. And when we saw him, he had a Fairlight keyboard, which, you know, I've read they were worth millions and millions of pounds. And he had this Fairlight on the stage, and he talked to it, and it talked back to him. And, you know, us as sort of 17, 18-year-olds thought, oh my God, this is the future. You know, he's quite an extraordinary musician.
So tell us about where are we? 1988. Tell us about your first ever gig, first ever paid professional gig.
Well, So as I said earlier, I'd finished up at BBC. I'd finished up at Newport Film School, and during my time at Newport Film School, you're obviously making films for your final your I wouldn't say graduation, it's not great, but you know, to complete the course. Basically, I did a 2-year HND course in film and TV, so not a degree. It's now a degree course, that what I did, but back then it wasn't. And we did a war film, and myself and a few of the students together, we made a war film called Borrowed Time, written by a guy called Tony Lindsay, who's written for loads of TV stuff. If you Google it, I'm sure you'll see some of the stuff he did. Loads of stuff he did. And Tony wrote this war film, and I ended up getting some props from BBC Wales Prop Store, because back in the day, the BBC had all the BBC studios had prop stores, and I got to know the prop guys. And one of the things I needed to get hold of was some costumes as well, because obviously you're mucking in doing everything. I'll get to the point very quickly.
It's all right.
Anyway, I went to the BBC and met a costume assistant, and the costume assistant was chatting to me, and she said, "Oh, what are you going to do when you finish college?" And I said, "Well, I want to get into design. Well, I can set you up with the senior costume designer." So I came for a meeting. I knew that I meant set design, but it was a meeting at the BBC, so I took it. And I took the meeting, and the costume designer said, "You don't want me, you want the senior set designer." And I said, "Well, yeah, but I didn't really want to say no." She picked up the phone. This would never happen now. Picked up the phone. "Mike, I've got somebody here. You'd quite like to meet you." And I literally went out of her office, almost across the corridor, went in and met the senior set designer at the BBC in Wales, and had an interview on the spot there. And then 6 weeks later, they rang me up and said, "Come down and start." So I finished in the beginning of June, and beginning middle of June, and then on the 8th of August I started at BBC Wales. So that was my introduction. So it was kind of like an apprenticeship, really, John. It wasn't, I'd never done it before. I knew how it was done, but I'd never actually done it. So I was learning the BBC way of drawing, because it's a very unique way of drawing. The BBC way of measuring things. There was a BBC way for everything. And then, so within those first 3 or 4 months, I did a bit of sports. The first job I ever did where I went out on my own was to go to the old Swansea City ground and hang a piece of felt up against the wall for an interview post-match. So I literally went all the way to Swansea to basically staple up a piece of cloth.
Brilliant.
And then I worked with a Welsh operatic superstar, and now called Bryn Terfel. So one of the first times I ever went in the studio was to do a Bryn Terfel special. He was like a 22-year-old, the new kid on the block. So I did that. I worked on Pobla Cwm, which is the Welsh sitcom, and I also did a show.
Is it a sitcom or a soap?
Soap. Sorry, yes, and actually, it's the longest running TV. I think it's the longest running soap in the UK.
Yeah.
Pobla Cwm. People of the Valley, that's what it means. And then I ended up doing a kids show called Havoc, which was a bit of a Welsh-speaking institution. So I kind of worked on that. So it was a really great grounding. So having left college literally 5-6 weeks before, by the end of that year, by the end of '88, I'd done a bit of sport, a bit of kids, a bit of drama. So yeah, kind of a bit of everything, really. And then I got a job in BBC London. So at the beginning of '89, I went down to London with a bit of work under my belt. And then I did a kids show called Tricky Business, which was a kids show set in a magic shop.
Away in light and silver, luminous through all these years.
Bizarre Love Triangle, New Order, and then The Garden, John Fox. John Fox, first time ever chosen on the show.
Really?
I know.
Amazing.
So obviously with big hits like Underpass and Europe After the Rain, and but then The Garden, not something I'd come across before. I'm sure I'd heard it in the past, but when I do all the collating of the music for these shows, and so I'm the one that gets to sort of hear these things firsthand before the listener does. And I was blown away by The Garden. I was absolutely blown away about it. But tell us about Bizarre Love Triangle first. Massive hit for New Order.
Bizarre Love Triangle is definitely my film school days, so that's kind of why it's in there. There was obviously several clubs we used to go to. Me and my mate Mo, we were literally first on the dance floor, last to leave, and it was In Between Days, Bizarre Love Triangle, World Destruction by Africa Bambaataa. They were 3 or 4 songs that we would just go nuts for, and Bizarre Love Triangle I think is probably New Order's greatest record. I can't, every time I put it on, I get goosebumps every time I hear it. There's something about, I'm not a musician, but there's something about that chord progression. There's something about the rise and fall in it. It's very euphoric. I mean, no wonder they were at the forefront of all the acid house stuff when that and the Hacienda. No wonder they were all over that, because they'd been doing it for years before, I think. It's perfect as a piece of music, and the Shep Pettibone 12-inch version
Yep.
is probably one of the greatest 12-inch records ever made. I think it's probably better than Blue Monday, but don't shoot me. I just
And
think
they're re-released in '94 as well, I believe.
oh, but now you got me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
Yes.
know.
So New Order did a few things. They did like they did Blue Monday '94, Bizarre Love Triangle '94.
Oh, I didn't know
I
that.
think they did a Shell Shock '94. There was it was like they were taking all their stuff from sort of
Yeah.
'86 to '88 and then calling it
Oh,
'94.
I
Yeah.
think it's a beautiful piece of music. I think
It
it's just
is.
a beautiful
It
piece
is.
of music.
And John Fox.
John Fox. Well, yeah. So the first gig I ever saw was Bowie at Milton Keynes in '83.
Wow. Okay.
And at the end of '83, I went and saw John Fox at the Lyceum. Me and my mates, the same mates who saw Thomas Dolby, we were very much into the Metamatic period of John Fox's career, with very electronic. I mean, it was that kind of early '80s thing. I mean, I loved the ska stuff of '79. When I started school in '78, '79, the ska, the two-tone thing was huge. And then when OMD and Kraftwerk and all those bands started to emerge in '80, '81, that was when I found my tribe, as the young kids say now. I was definitely, oh, right, I love everything electronic. And so John Fox definitely was at the front and center of that. And then he brought out the Golden Section album and he toured that in '83. And we got to the Lyceum in the Strand at like 3 in the afternoon, so we could be right at the front. And the Garden, I think, may have been one of the first tracks he walked onto. It was definitely no small amount of dry ice, John. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And he kind of walked out to it. But I love the cinematic quality to it. It's beautiful. I think it's named because he had a recording studio in Shoreditch called the Garden, and I think that's probably where he got the name from. But it's just
It's quite a euphoric track, isn't it?
yeah, and it's got that, and there's a real Europeanness to it.
Yep.
And I loved all that. Vienna by Ultravox and Mind of a Toy by Visage, all those records just evoked that kind of Eastern European vibe, which I, as a young kid, I just bloody loved. I really loved it. So yeah, the Garden's an amazing, amazing piece of work.
You were going to tell us about how you almost auditioned for a particular light program in the '80s. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well done for shoehorning that in, John. So when I was at film school, the aforementioned film school in 1987, you remember a show called No Limits? Or you might have heard about it. I don't know, but No Limits was a sort of weekly magazine show that ran out of BBC Manchester, and from about 85, 86, Jenny Powell was one of the presenters. Jonathan King was the producer, was involved with it, or it's his brainchild, and blah blah blah. Anyway, they decided in '87 they wanted regional TV presenters. So what they did, they auditioned the regions in all the BBC regions for presenters to accompany Jenny Powell, and I can't remember the other guy's name. He was really lovely.
It wasn't Steve Blacknell or someone like that, was it?
No, I want to say his name. Oh, I don't know. You'll Google it. You'll put a footnote in the notes after this, John. Yeah, because I was down in Wales, I just sent a thing off. I don't know why. I really don't know why I did. I thought, well, why not? Anyway, I got selected to audition, and it was a televised audition. So we went to this place called Castle Coch in Cardiff. No puns, please. And auditioned there for a day. Had to do charades, had to dance around a bit, had to do a piece to camera. On the day, I got down to the last 8, and then yeah, that was it. So my brush with fame. I probably realised that actually, yeah, definitely, I'm better behind the scenes.
So we're in 1989 now. Tell us a little bit about BBC London. You're doing the BBC London stuff now.
Yeah, so Tricky Business was this kids show. So working at Telly Centre for the first time was just mind blowing. And I tell you what, that love of that building never went from me until it shut in 2013. And I was at the Magnus played a farewell gig in the ring road of out the front of the BBC at 2013, and I was at that gig. I never ever got tired of walking through those doors. There was something quite magical about it. I can't say what it was, but there was just something brilliant. I do think it was having grown up watching all those shows that have been produced from that building and actually getting the opportunity to work within that building was just, for me, incredibly special. And the BBC, I don't know how much you know about it, but essentially it was 8 studios in a more or less a full circle,
Yeah.
running around what they called
But
the
it
ring
was,
road.
sorry to jump in, but it was almost as, Television Centre was almost as famous as the programmes it was pumping out. You
Yeah.
know, so you'd always see it, whether it being focused in news programmes, Blue Peter, Nationwide.
Yeah.
There was, you know, such an iconic building. But yeah, you were saying, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. And actually, interestingly, one of the shows I didn't mention was Swap Shop that I used to watch in the 70s.
Mm.
And I remember Swap Shop very specifically, an episode of Swap Shop where they were always breaking the fourth wall in Swap Shop. But there was one episode where Noel went out of the TC7, which is where they did it, and walked around the ring road and went into TC6, and where what's it called? I want to say the sitcom. Oh, it's gone from my head, but there was a sitcom in there, and he was saying, "Oh, this is where this is, and look, we're coming in behind the scenes, and this is how it all works." And I just remember being absolutely fascinated by that. And so when I got to work there, that was just. I couldn't believe I was there, mate. I couldn't believe I was wandering around all these corridors, and at that time in the late 80s, the BBC was very busy. So during a lunchtime, you used to just basically wander around all the studios and see all these different shows. Thursday was always really special, or Wednesday rather, because Top the Pops was always being recorded. So you'd go in and see those shows. I remember going in and the British Empire was being done, or whatever it was.
Oh,
I
love that program.
Or there was the House of Elliot being shot in TC1, or Blue Peter was always in. So you would literally, walk around from studio to studio. Nobody really cared about security back then, and you just go and wander and have a look. And it was just brilliant, John. It was just brilliant. So I did that show, Tricky Business, and then I went back to BBC Wales, and I did more of the same. Only this time, having gone from being an apprentice, I was now a proper assistant. So I did more of the same down in BBC Wales. And then I ended the year, I think, doing an episode of Minder. I kind of got involved in an episode of Minder. So that was kind of 89 on the cusp of 90. And obviously in 90, I can't remember how I started the year, but I did Bergerac in 1990. I know we're an 80s podcast, but I did Bergerac in
Hey, you keep saying we're an 80s podcast. You can talk about whatever the hell you like, man. Honestly,
well, it was only that you mentioned Bergerac earlier, and so again, within 18 months, 2 years of finishing college, there I am, living the life of Riley in Jersey and France, and shooting, a whole series of Bergerac, and I loved that, and that was a real eye opener because I'd never been away filming before. And so it went, and then the early 90s were spent at the BBC until about 93, where the BBC had kind of finished. I mean, by 95, the BBC, but it was all in-house designers and design department, and by 95 that had all kind of gone. And then obviously I was off doing loads of other shows, like lots of Channel 4 stuff and lots of comedy and sitcom. I did Game On. I did loads. I did loads of stuff away from the BBC. But yeah, those early 90s show. I mean, obviously, which we could talk about the Ghosty show, which I know maybe we want to talk about.
That's coming up. That's coming up. Don't you worry.
I did One Foot in the Grave. I did On the Up. I did Grange Hill for a year.
Okay, so tell us about One Foot in the Grave. Tell us what, because that started in 1990. That is up there with Only Fools and Horses for me as being one of the greatest sitcoms of all time.
Yeah.
Your face would suggest otherwise.
No, my face would suggest otherwise with with Only Fools and Horses, which I think is a pile of rubbish.
Right? Honestly,
okay.
That's your tagline for the show. You know that.
I've never got it. I just don't understand why so many people like it. And I don't know what it is. There's nothing necessarily. I mean, I think Nicholas Innes is a great actor. I'm not actually. Maybe it's just David Jason. There's something about David Jason that doesn't kind of ring. I'm not a massive fan of him.
Okay.
In the same way that I really can't bear movies with Joe Pesci. I think it's
you don't like short blokes.
Well, I worked with the two Ronnies very briefly, and I quite like Ronnie Corbett. But
ironically, he was really rude to my dad on a golf course once.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah, I know.
I did Ronnie Barker's BAFTA special that they did for him, and Ronnie was there, so I got to, and I've done some comic relief stuff with Ronnie. He was delightful to me. But um, there we go. No, I just don't get why people love Only Fools and Horses, and the older I get. And the more people love it, the more people I absolutely hate it. Anyway, that's the reason why I don't like that. But I agree with you with One Foot in the Grave. I believe it's one of the fans' favourite series. So it's the last of the original series. So that's 93. So that was shot in 92 into 93. So it probably went out late 93.
Well, I'm gonna have to pull you up on that, Richard.
All right, okay. But the episode one of the episodes I did that everybody knows is where he picks the dog up instead of the phone. So that's one of the ones I was involved with. When Victor finds the pot plant in the downstairs loo.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I planted that. I put that in the loo.
No way! Right, hold on. No, don't just glaze over that. Right? Okay. No, Richard, for God's sake, right?
It wasn't my joke, John. I was told to put it in the toilet.
I know,
I did dress it in. I did dress it in.
Right, okay. So you're responsible for putting the famous pot plant in the Kazi for Richard Victor Meldrew to find.
Yeah, and to go mental over. Yeah, it's one of his greatest ever breakdowns, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I did that, and then we did a big flooding restaurant scene. Which I really enjoyed doing. That was a real challenge from a production design point of view, working with so my designer was a lovely chap called Nick Somerville, who's sadly no longer around, but Nick and I, that was a real challenge to make that work in front of a live studio audience, to have basically water cascading down from the fire, what are they called, the things in the roof that when there's a fire they go
sprinklers.
Sprinklers. Yeah, that's the word. We had an episode where there was a load of magician's pigeons inside Victor's house.
Yes.
We basically built a tent over the entire studio. Actually, one thing I forgot to mention about 1989, John, is I worked on the Les Dennis Laughter Show.
Well, yeah, you don't have to mention things like that.
No, I'm going to mention it because it just suddenly reminded me that on the Les Dennis Laughter Show, we had live tigers in the studio.
Wow. Okay.
And we literally put. It was a locked off studio, and it was a sequence where Les was trying to tame these tigers. So they kind of did a split screen thing. So we shot all Les's stuff first, and then we literally dragged these two tigers in and put a cage around it. Like when you were a kid and you got those really cheap plastic toy zoos, and there was those very flimsy green lockable fence panels that looked like a cage. That was it. I mean, essentially it was an equivalent of that. And me and my designer, we ended up somehow in the studio, and there was only this bloody thin metal frame from between us and these two terrifying tigers. But yeah, that suddenly made me think of that.
I've just never sort of envisaged using the words laughter and Les Dennis in the same.
Do you know what? He was really, really nice. I
can imagine he is.
I knew him from Russ Abbott and all that stuff, and it comes with a certain amount of baggage. But he was lovely. He was lovely. I sort of nothing but a bit of a soft spot for him. He came to my 23rd birthday party.
Oh, bless him. Right. Well, let's. I'll tell you what we'll do then. This is something we don't normally do, but we're going to do some production on the fly. Okay. And I'm going to bring up your IMDb. Okay, and I'm going to throw some things at you because you've got a very illustrious career, shall we say? And I'm just gonna scroll right down to the bottom, right down. I'm still scrolling, listeners. I'm still scrolling. Okay. So let's go to 1980. No, well, not 1987. It was 1991. You did 2 episodes of Going Live with Sarah Green.
I did 3 months of it, actually. Yes,
and He Who Shall Not Be Named.
3 months. Loved that show, and the reason I loved it was the music. So got to do stuff with James, the band, the Mott Turtles, EMF, Jesus Jones. I mean, it was a great time to be doing Going Live because all that post Manchester stuff. Soho, the Railway Children came on that show when I
love them.
Alita Adams came on that show when I did it. I ended up on it a couple of times when the camera went rogue. Yes, loved it and loved working with Sarah.
Excellent. Well, hopefully we've got Sarah Green coming on as a guest, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah, she's lovely.
Yeah. So fingers crossed for that one. do you know what? I feel as though Grange Hill's been done to death. You did a Grange Hill based podcast, so we're going to glaze over that one. And we've had right, the smell of Reeves and Mortimer.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
90. What was that? 94.
95.
95. Oh right, yeah. So I did all the location stuff down in Hastings and all the studio bits. I suppose the one thing that everybody remembers is the MasterChef.
Oh, the big head and the pointy
big
finger.
head. So that's something I was very heavily involved with. So my production designer on that was in fact, I was talking to him only the other day. A lovely, lovely designer called Dennis DeGroot, who's done everything. I mean, if you think my IMDb is impressive, God bless you. You should look at Dennis's. It's just amazing. So yeah, Den let me look after that one. So actually, I wasn't the designer, but he let me design a little set for that and the plinths and stuff. And obviously with him keeping an eye on it. But yeah, that was that sequence. And then what else did we do? We did Slade Go Camping. That was
yeah.
Yeah, really good fun. They were insane, the pair of them, and obviously they were in their imperial phase at that point. So, yeah.
They for me were actual belly laughs. There were very few things as a kid or an early teen that gave me actual belly laughs, and it was Reeves and Mortimer. All day.
No, they were lovely, and as they proved, as the older they get, they're just two very, very nice guys.
Exactly.
I've been fortunate enough to work with Diane Morgan on the Mandy series, and I think Diane's probably the nearest equivalent. I think there's something very surreal about the way her head works in the way that Vic and Bob do their stuff. I think, yeah, I did say that to her. I said, I think yours, and she was really flattered by it, but I think it's true.
We need a bit more madness to counteract the madness. the sort of the madness of day-to-day life. You worked on the Crystal Maze.
I did, yeah. So my production designer on that was James Dillon. Another, again, if you Google his stuff, blimey, and he's still working. Taskmaster is one of James's sets, and
wow.
Not Going Out is one of James's sets. That was a great experience. Actually shot in Harlow, John, so not too far from you at Aces High Hangar in Harlow when I did it.
I know it well.
On the last two series, I was sort of assisting on the last but one, and then on the last series, I was the art director. Ed Tudor-Pole was the Crystal Maze Master. Is that? I don't know what the official title of the bloke in charge there. But what I loved about that set, and it was a phenomenal set to walk around, is what you saw when there was that very crude digital version of the set that used to sort of graphic that used to spiral where you saw all the zones. That's exactly what it was like in real life. It was that big. It filled a football pitch. It was
wow.
It was huge. So yeah, I did the last series. It always made me laugh that because it was always shot historically it was always shot at the end of the year into winter. And it always made me laugh that in the Aztec zone, the lake would always freeze over because we're in an aircraft hangar. But yeah, I really loved it. One of the best jobs I ever did as an art director.
Oh, nice. A seldom forgotten sort of sitcom, Game On. No one really talks about it anymore. And I adored it as a kid. I thought it was superb. 3 series. Tell us a little bit about that.
I did the middle series. So the first series had Ben
Chaplin.
Chaplin.
Yeah.
Chaplin. He went off to crack America, didn't he? So they got Neil Stukin to play that part.
And they broke the fourth wall, didn't they?
Broke the fourth wall all the time. Sam Janis and Matthew Cottle were the other cast members. Really enjoyed it. And it's interesting. So that's 96. That's peak. That's Euro 96. So for me, that time, there's Game On, and I worked on the football, fantasy football. So, and I got involved with the Three Lions single very, 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 briefly. So those two shows are kind of simultaneously wrapped up for me as sort of that peak Brit poppy laddie, that time. And it was very, very exciting. And sort of, it just felt like, I don't know, lag culture taken over the world, I guess, at that point. But it was tremendous fun. The really lovely cast. They were a little bit rock and roll, the cast themselves, and the set was recorded at London Studios. Used to go in and out every week, the set. So one a week we used to do, directed by a lovely chap called John Stroud, who's sadly no longer around, but John directed My Hero. That was his baby. Who I worked on the first series of My Hero. So yeah, it was just a very, very, very fun time.
Going right back to the beginning of the interview, we opened the show with Yellow Pearl by Phil Lynott. Tell us why you chose that particular track, but also tell us about your time on Top of the Pops.
Well, I think I just wanted to choose a track that represented Top of the Pops, really, because it was definitely growing up. And I remember a couple of girls from school going to one of the recordings in about 83, 84. So that was very exciting in the school that we might see people we know on the telly. Yeah, it's just kind of what it represents. And and being a music nerd and a fan of music, it was just a focus. And obviously you got to see videos, and occasionally there would be an exclusive on a Top of the Pop. So yeah, it was. And I do remember New Order performing Blue Monday, and all those kind of classic performances. I kind of remember them. And I remember the Associates doing Party Fears 2 and just falling in love with them and that particular track at that moment. I just thought it was amazing, and so it goes. I did Top the Pops in 91. So I did I did the one before Christmas and the Christmas Top the Pops 91. So, and that was up at Elstree Studios because it had moved up there. I'd been doing Grain Chill at Elstree the same year, so it was just I happened to be in the right place at the right time, and I was literally across the road and I needed extra help, and I came in. So we had James were on doing Sit Down.
Yep.
Chesney Hawkes doing the One and Only. OMD did Sailing on the Seventh Sea.
Yeah.
The Scorpions.
Winds of Change.
2 Unlimited were on it. Yeah, it was great. It was recorded over 2 days. We made a deliberate with the set. If you actually weirdly, if you watch that episode, and I have watched it because it got rerun a couple of years ago when BBC do the reruns. It's not overly Christmassy. I think the designer I was working with, we were very keen not to go mad with tinsel and Christmas trees, so it was quite a minimal Christmas set. But Top of the Pops being up in Elstree when it moved up there, because doing Grain Chill, it was literally across the road. So I remember walking in a rehearsal and ended up standing on stage with Paul McCartney one lunchtime because he was on there to do a song, obviously, and they needed members of the audience on the night to stand around him. He wanted to do a very intimate thing, and obviously during the afternoon there was no audience, so they just asked anybody who was standing on the studio floor to come and stand on stage. So I'd literally gone on for a lunch out to see what's going on, and I'm literally stood between McCartney and Linda McCartney for a camera rehearsal for sort of 20 minutes.
Enjoy this trip. Enjoy this trip. And it is a trip.
Countdown is progressing.
1, 2, 3, 4.
S Express, theme from S Express. Tell us why you chose that particular record.
I just thought it was one of the greatest pieces of music I heard at that particular time, and I think I would have heard it probably over the radio, but I went to South Wales' equivalent of a acid house club somewhere in between Newport and Cardiff or somewhere, and I heard it in a club. Not big. Obviously, London, it was all kicking off with acid house, and I was still a student in Wales, so some of that kind of slightly passed me by. But I just loved it, and I still love it, and I still play it. I occasionally DJ, and I still play it whenever I DJ. I've got 2 copies of it because one's practically worn out.
Oh wow!
I just love it. It's perfection. Electronic perfection in the same way that the New Order is, in my opinion. It's just something magical about that piece of music. Everything about it just works.
Yeah.
And it just, you can't help but dance to it. It's a phenomenal record.
So people are going to be screaming at their radios right now because I haven't got to the ultimate question, which is a question that we ask every single one of our guests. And Richard, I'll tell you what, 94% hit rate, success, and people haven't let us down. So, Mr. Richard Drew, do you have a ghost story?
Well, here's the thing, John. I literally dream about this question because Obviously, I don't, because I don't believe in that nonsense. With my work hat on, John, and you do know this, I was the art director on BBC One's Ghostwatch. So the production designer on the show was a lovely gentleman called Kane Starkey, sadly no longer with us, and I was his art director. So I was involved with it for about 10 weeks from start to finish, so a relatively short amount of time. But I was, because I was the standby art director / art director, I was there every day of filming and involved in the prep. Probably more of the prep to do with the studio than the house. But obviously there every day when we were filming it. And
was the house on a backlot somewhere, or was it an actual?
No. It was in a real location. So it was anybody who knows West London and Northolt Airfield, out on the A40. It's sort of just the other side of the A40, just a housing estate there, and the house is still there. And we shot outside and inside, obviously. And what we did was, I think we only shot for about 4 and a bit weeks. So we basically threw a load of black drapes around all the windows of the house, redressed it, and shot 3 weeks of the house interiors in a blacked out house because it's set at night. And then we took the black drapes down, did 2 night exterior days. So that's how you connected it. And then we did a week in the studio, and then obviously in the edit it was all cut together. But yeah, it was all shot on location.
And how much of a secret was it? Was there any sort of disclaimer to say that this was, just purely for entertainment purposes, or?
I don't know that anybody knew what an NDA was back then, so I don't ever remember signing it. What I do remember is right up until the last minute, in terms of the name of the show, it was referred to as Noddies. So we were working on a show called Noddies. And a noddy, as I'm sure you know, is when you do a piece to camera and you cut to the presenter nodding their head in agreement to drop into an edit. That's what a noddy is known as. So a noddy is just a telly term. So it was known as Noddies, but then Ken and I did know it was called Ghostwatch because one of the things I had to do very early on was try and come up with a logo. It's not the logo that you see on the show because they got a proper BBC graphic designer in to do it, but they were thinking, well, we've got to keep this secret within the building. I think it was fairly secretive during the building. Obviously the BBC Drama knew things had been commissioned, but they didn't quite know what it was. So I believe. So we came up with a logo, and we were told, well, the show's going to be called Ghostwatch. And then, but once we were doing it, I don't actually remember talking to too many people about it. I think it's quite interesting actually, John. Whenever I've done first series of things, like I did the Inbetweeners. So when you just say to someone, I'm working on a show to the Inbetweeners, people just shrug their shoulders because they got no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, of course.
But over the passage of time, obviously, and when we did series 2 of Inbetweeners and series 3, then everybody, knew what it was. But at the start, nobody had a clue. And I think it was probably the same with Ghostwatch. I might as well, I could call it anything. Nobody would have really cared. And it was quite a low key thing. We were only shooting for a month. And there was only 2. I think obviously where we shot it in this real location was in a cul-de-sac, so other members of the public knew what was going on. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't think there was local press hanging around from memory or anything like that. So I don't think there was. Interestingly, in the Radio Times, because I've still got my copy of the Radio Times, it does say Screen One present a drama called Ghostwatch. It says it in the opening line on the listings.
Right,
what it's going to be. So I remember after it all had aired and obviously had kicked off, and I think the director and the producer went on a show. I want to say it's called Right to Reply. I don't know if that's correct, but it was like the next day they were.
It was like a points of view, wasn't it?
It was like a points of view thing. So they went on to say about it because obviously a lot of people had freaked out by it. They had. I believe there was over 1 million calls to the duty switchboard, but then there was like over 600 complaints. So on the night, it received, a very high volume of calls because a lot of people thought it was real. And it's interesting because it's a bit funny with Ghostwatch because it's a bit like Christmas at this end of September. I kind of get the box down from the loft because I get to chat about it, and then literally beginning of November it goes back in the loft and I worry about it till next year. But I was speaking to quite a lot of people about this time around. It seems to me that a lot of people in their early 40s now, so they would have been ages 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They're the ones that were most freaked out about it, that age range. So people now in their early 40s are still quite traumatized by it.
I watched it. A friend of mine had recorded it from transmission, so I then would have seen his tape of it probably in around 96.
Yeah.
97. So I would have been 9 or 10 at the time.
Yeah.
And I, again, went in there blind. So I did, I was just told, watch this. It was like a grail of a tape I was given. Because it never got repeated, did it? It never got
BBC still haven't repeaed. I don't think it's a thing in bands, but the BBC have never repeated it.
Yeah, it sits in a locked cupboard, I think, somewhere, But and they said just watch it, and I did. And the only thing that took me out of it was one of the girls. I think it was the younger daughter. Wasn't particularly convincing.
Yeah,
it was the only thing that really took me out of it. Sadly.
I watched it again this week because I did a little screening in a local pub near me, and it hasn't. I don't know that it's dated that well, but I think I always say this about any shows over a set number of time. I think it's as much to do with the technology as anything is why things date. I
think it's dated. I think it's dated worse when you look at the studio stuff. When you look at the Parkinson stuff with Mike Smith and what have you. I think that screams late 80s, early 90s in terms of Wogan and things like that. That's got those creams and greys and
it was a deliberate thing to make it feel like a that kind of that world. It definitely came from that world. I've always thought it was a bit crime watchy in terms of its thing, and almost Newsnighty to a degree. But I think the technology, it's just the video wall thing, instantly dates it. I think, and I watched 24 for the first time only at the start of this year. And what dates 24 is the flip phones, and that's the thing that takes you out. Oh, right, it is a period. This is a period piece. But some of it stands up really, really well. Some of the scares are genuinely still, and I know what's coming. I've only seen it half a dozen times since I worked on it, but there's a couple of moments that still make you jump, which is great. That's brilliant. And the story, it's such a clever story, and it's so it's very inventive as a piece of telly.
And 101 Films, I think it was last year or the year before, released a Blu-ray box set of it with an excellent booklet and some lovely photographs in there as well. So if anybody wants to get hold of it, I think it's like 20 quid on Amazon at the moment. Just get involved.
Seriously. There's another version coming out in they've just announced a version for New Zealand and Australia, but I've done an audio commentary on that, so that's
okay.
I don't live in New Zealand or Australia, John.
Yeah, not very helpful that, Rick. Thanks for bringing it up.
Talk for hours, every day, so many drinks, such pretty flowers. So tell me, what have I?
Pet Shop Boys, Dusty Springfield, the late great Dusty Springfield, 1987, number one hit. Interesting televisual-based fact about this one. So, do you remember the character of Jackie Merrick from Emmerdale, who was married to Kathy? Played by the actor Ian Sharrock.
Well, ITV show, John. So no, I don't.
Yeah, I know. Instantly makes me a scumbag because I watched it. But he had an untimely death in the show, having been in it for 9 years or something, right? Okay. And he was set a challenge by Seth, who was the guy with the big moustache who used to drink in the pub all the time. No, exactly. No. This isn't just for you, Rich. This is for the millions of listeners that we have. He was set a challenge, a £5 bet challenge to find this fox that had been causing mischief in the village. So he goes out into the woods at night with his gun to find the fox. The gun strap accidentally gets caught on his gear stick and he shoots himself. Right? Blows himself away, and all you see is his feet just laying upright like that, where he's been shot, and all you can hear is "What Have I Done to Deserve This" playing in the background from his blue Jeep that he had in the. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There's some facts for you. But why did you choose that, Richard?
Well, oddly, on the subject of death, it's the record I want to be played at my funeral. So that's the first thing.
Wow. Okay.
Secondly, I was a Pet Shop Boys fan from day one.
They can do no wrong.
They can do no wrong. I had that original 7 of the Bobby O version of West End Girls, and I've been a fan ever since. Even when they went a bit guitar-y, I still quite like them, which is around the time of that period of Pet Shop Boys. But I just think, I mean, everybody goes on about, and I'm going to use that word again, imperial phase, but this is their imperial phase. And whatever again, I'm going to use that word perfection as well. I just think it's pop perfection. There's something, again, about the way the verse, chorus, melody, all of it just is beautiful. Dusty, huge fan. My mum used to buy records worked in a record shop in the early 60s. Big Dusty fan. There's a whole rack of mum's old 7s down there that she gave me. So it was almost like the perfect storm for me. It had my favourite band. Chris Lowe's, I just think second to none in terms of style as well. I used to try and copy his style whenever I could afford to buy clothes.
Isn't that just like being really quiet and putting some sunglasses on?
Oh, way more than that.
Okay. And a baseball cap.
I bought a baseball cap. I bought a puffer jacket. I bought a Mambo T-shirt because Chris wore a Mambo T-shirt on the cover of a Smash. There were moments where I really fixated. Stripy T-shirt on the cover of Suburbia. Well, I went out and bought a stripy. That kind of thing makes me sad. I know, and I should have known better because I was in my late teens, early 20s. But yeah, it's a beautiful piece of music, and the video is amazing.
Yes,
and they never look cooler. And yeah, actually, that album it was on is amazing. The following album with what's it? Behavior, isn't it? The one after.
Yeah,
they get even better. You think actually is like a great album, then they bring out Behavior, and it's like bloody hell. This is extraordinary. And they're still extraordinary. The last time I saw them live was in Brighton, a handful of years ago, was really good. But the one I really loved, I got to see them at the residency they did at the Royal Opera House about 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay.
And I've just, God, you are still amazing. You are still amazing. All these songs are brilliant.
Tennant's like 70 now as well.
I know they're both knocking on, but there's just, and I love all their influences because they loved all that early electronic kind of all from the gay house scene and the gay club scene, and they love all that Euro disco stuff, and they love all the high energy stuff, and that's the stuff I loved growing up as well. So yeah, their influences are all there. You throw in Neil's kind of classical influences as well, which are kind of film soundtracks too. It's all mixed in. They can't do any wrong. And they've got a great name as well. The Pet Shop Boys is such a great name for a band as well.
Where do you stand on It Couldn't Happen Here, the film with Joss Ackland?
I quite liked it. So James, my designer of the Crystal Maze, designed it.
Oh wow! Okay, right, yeah.
So he was telling me that when I quite like it. It's bizarre. I mean, it's bizarre in the way that the Vic and Bob are bizarre. But James did say to me that there were certain moments during the making of that film where they were kind of making it up as they went along. Yeah. And I think that definitely comes across. But there's something beautiful, there's something very British about it. I mean, these are all things that a million other people have said before me, but I do really like it. And the I Couldn't Happen Here. Was that meant to be a Bond theme, or was that there was something where that was going to be?
No. So the story goes that 87, Living Daylights, 25th anniversary Bond movie, Timothy Dalton's first output, before Aha came on the scene with their Living Daylights. The Pet Shop Boys song, This Must Be the Place.
Ah, that's it.
Yeah, was penned as being the Bond record.
Which is a great song.
It is and you can hear it. It's got a real kind of Bond guitar going on in there.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I love The Living Daylights by a-ha. I think it's a brilliant record.
Yeah.
You probably think it's a pile of shit.
I quite like a bit of early art. I like Aha. I don't know whether I like the Living Daylights as much, but I thought that first album, Hunting High Low, is a really good album.
Oh yeah, but then
Living a Boy's Adventure Tale is a really good piece. Is a really good song.
but then again, Scoundrel Days I think is a superb album as well. The second album wasn't so bothered about, what was it, Getting Lost in the Rain or whatever it was called, the third album.
Right. Okay.
That had Touchy on it and a few records like that.
Touchy's a bit weird. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we've digressed. But yeah. Aha. The Pet Shop Boys, This Must Be the Place. That was what was to be used as the Bond theme. And then I think it was going to be used as the sort of incidental Bond music as a secondary record, but they didn't want that. So they then ended up using that Pretenders record. That was then played continuously throughout. I think when the German assassins got it playing on his headphones.
Headphones. Yeah.
So, but yeah, what have I done to deserve this? Pet Shop Boys, Dusty Springfield. I think there was a nice patch between sort of 87 to 90, maybe 91, where a lot of these, and pardon the expression, these old birds were giving it another go. So you had people like Dusty Springfield, you had Sandy Shaw, you had Tammy Wynette, and they were all coming back. And even Liza Minnelli, you were seeing them all back on top of the pops again. Yeah. Just doing their bit.
The Pet Shop Boys produced that album, didn't they, with Liza Minnelli?
That's right. Yeah.
Losing My Mind, all that stuff. That was great. And I think they had some stuff to do because Dusty had Reputation album around that time.
Yes.
And
was that with all the In Private and
In Private, it was all off the back of Nothing Has Been Proved.
That's it.
These Profumo film Scandal. That's it. Which the Pet Shop Boys wrote for her, I think. Yeah.
Yes, they wrote that record
Neil
for
does
her.
backing vocals, doesn't he? Yeah.
That's right. I want to talk about comedy. Seems to be quite the mainstay of your career. Looking back, looking through your credits, you've worked with such people like, you did Game On, One Foot in the Grave. You've worked with Jimmy Carr. You've worked with Johnny Vegas. You've worked with Ricky Gervais. So you worked with Ricky most recently on Afterlife, is that correct?
Correct, and some of those vodka commercials that he does as well.
Okay. You also worked with Rick Mail as well on Man Down with Greg Davis.
I did. So yeah, that was what I was talking about right at the start. So if you imagine the start of the 80s, I'm watching the young ones.
Yeah.
As we all did, and then to get to work with Rick on that Man Down series was quite. Yeah, it was very, very special, that. And we had a bit of a moment, actually, because he, when we shot the pilot, I asked him at the end of the pilot, we only did a week for the pilot, and I really wanted a photo with him. And it's not something I often do, it's sort of almost slightly breaking that professional thing, but I thought, well, I've got to ask. And he was very sweet, and he took a photo, and it was really funny. So there was two photos that we took. The first one, he got on his knees and gave me a blowjob. So we got a photo of that, and then literally within a beat, he said, "Right, now one for your mum." And he got up and he put his arm around me, and we did another photo. And it was
wow!
And I just loved that. I love the fact that his head was just thinking like that. So that was very sweet. And then we did the series proper, and I was in the first time I met him on that series, and I was in the kitchen working on something. He was waiting to do his piece, and he was just sat down. And I think he thought I was Aid Edmondson from the back because I've got no hair. And he said something like, blah, blah, Aid. And I turned around and said, "Oh, no, it's Richard. We met on the pilot." And then next thing I know, I'm having a big chat with him about the young ones and the stuff he'd done. And, he was just telling me about, just his career, really. And it was just lovely. He was really, really sweet. And then again, at the end of the job, we had another photo taken together, and it was lovely. And of course, it was really, really sad when he sadly passed away, because we were literally about to start doing the second series, and the news came through. So that all got put on ice. And then, I never got a chance to work with him again, obviously, but I never got a chance to work on that show again because I then had to end up doing something else. But I'd been penciled to work on a they were going to possibly be redoing Bottom, and they were going to set it on an island, and it was called Hooligans Island, and I think it was the sort of stage thing that they'd done together.
Yes, Hooligans Island, I think, was the third stage show that they'd done.
Yeah. So I had a call from Ed Ed by about doing it, and so I did some development with Ed on it, and we did some mood boards and read the script, which annoyingly I don't have anymore, which is really annoying. And so I was just chatting to Rick about that a little bit as well, saying, "Oh, I was nearly going to do this thing," and I mean, he told me some stuff I probably don't want to, say. So, but yeah, he was just lovely. But I mean, proper comedy hero. I worked with Nigel Planer on some David Walliams stuff I've done as well. So I mentioned earlier about the Inbetweeners. Well, that was in a roundabout kind of way.
Well, so tell us about the Inbetweeners, because it's I think it's it's gone down in time as a cult classic. 3 series, 2 films, the end, brilliant. No more talks about don't do any talks about bringing it back. It was perfect. It was perfect. But tell us about working on that, because I'm a big follower of the Buckley's podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, I listen to James and Claire, and I think they're fantastic. But yeah, tell us what it was like working with those guys.
Well, it was kind of it was difficult. I'll be brutally honest. It was quite a hard thing to get involved with. I got involved with the pilot, which at that time was called Baggy Trousers. I don't know if you know
That's
that.
right, yeah.
And they were talking about doing it as a period thing, so setting it in the 80s. And
James Buckley was playing the Neil character, I believe, in the pilot. Yeah.
And actually, weirdly, this is a complete sidebar here. James went to my old secondary school, well after me, but
in Dagenham.
He's a Rainham lad.
Yeah.
So it was set in the 80s, and I think it was somebody at Channel 4. I think it might have been Caroline Leddy, who was the exec from Channel 4, just said to the writers, Ian Damon, look, you need to set this in put this in a contemporary setting. So that's what they did. Ian and Damon I knew through the 11 o'clock show, so that's kind of how I got involved. So we shot the pilot, then it got commissioned, and the first series was shot. I mean, very small budget. I suppose the first week's filming was the Thorpe Park bit of series 1, so that was the first stuff we ever did. And then obviously fast forward to the end and the big finale with the car going into the lake. So I would say it was problematic because it was tight budget, quite stressful. But I'm very, very proud now. Retrospectively, I'm very proud of it. But at the time, it was hard work. It was quite a small crew. It was quite an intense process. The boys were always very lovely. It was quite a tricky thing for me. I suppose one of my claims to fame is I bought the car. So the
really the Fiat Ibiza or whatever it is.
Well, yeah, and this is the hilarious thing. So it was written as written. It was a Fiat Ibiza. I contacted Fiat in Italy about this to sort of say had they ever produced it. They were completely perplexed why this chap was ringing up from England, about this specific car, and I got through to them. I think I chatted. I got them on an email, and it turned out that they never produced an Ibiza. Funnily enough, that was always something that a dealership would do to try and get people just to buy cars. They would put a sticker on it, change a couple of seat covers, happy days. So the car was bought from this dodgy dealer in Croydon, because I was living down in Caterham at that point, and I bought the car with £500 of my own money, because I'd seen it advertised, and so therefore I'm in the logbook. So I'm in the logbook as the previous owner of the Inbetweeners.
Oh, fantastic!
And
that is fantastic.
And then I got it picked up by our action vehicle company, and then it was all sorted out with the money, blah blah blah. But yeah, I'm the previous owner of the Inbetweeners car. And then for the last series where we threw the thing into the lake, that's a second car that we used for that, because funnily enough, John, you can't just roll cars into lakes. So we took another car, we gutted it, minus basically because of pollution. So
of course, yeah.
It's a shell that goes in, made as a complete match, same number plate, everything the same, and we rolled that into the lake. So actually, of the things I did, that's probably my finest achievement. The problem solving of that to make that work, I really loved that whole process. Series 2, if anybody knows the series back to back, if you look at the common room in series 2, that's a set. The series 1, we shot it in a real school. Series 3, we went back to the same school. Series 2, they were really pissed off with us. and we didn't go to the school, so we shot it in loads of other schools. But the common room was essentially a copy of the real building. So that was, yeah, again, that I'm quite proud of that actually.
Mm.
I think you can tell in the ceiling there's lots of pipes and tubes in the real building, and there's fewer pipes and tubes on the ceiling.
Tell us about Afterlife, because that was in the last sort of 4 or 5 years, a Netflix drama with Ricky Gervais that became a cult sensation as well. That I've never known a comedy series make people belly laugh but also bawl their eyes out at the same time, and it did with me.
Yeah,
So tell us what it was like to work on that.
it's nuts, isn't it, how that just caught something. I think there's something like 160, 180 million people worldwide have seen it.
Yeah.
Which is, phenomenal figures. I really enjoyed working on it from start to finish. Ricky, as I said, I knew him, but I got another designer who Ricky done a lot of work with was asked to do it. Her and I know each other really well. A lovely lady called Anna Higginson, amazing production designer. She wasn't available, and Anna and I have known each other our entire careers. And she knew Ricky and just said, look, why don't you get Richard to do it? You know Richard, you worked with him years ago, went for a meeting with Ricky, walked through the door. Oh, I remember you. And that was it. There was no interview. It was just kind of like, oh, and if Anna says you're all right, then you're all right. And
the worlds were in alignment, as it were.
Yeah, it just things and that was around the time I was doing Partridge. So a lot of things were sort of running in my favor at that point. It was but it was perfect. And I think for me, the challenge is building the house so that anybody who knows the series, so the interior of the house is a set. The exterior is a real exterior, obviously. The interior of the newspaper office is a set, the real exterior. And obviously the psychiatrist is a set, and also the dad's hospital, dad's care home is a set as well.
And where is the village? It's
several places. So when the original concept for it was for it to be somewhere by the coast. So that's why there is a scene in series 1 where he tries to drown himself. So that's kind of almost like a leftover from that original idea that maybe Tamworth, that's it, is a coastal town. But essentially it's made up of 3 or 4 locations. So there's a bit of old Hemel Hempstead, there's Hampstead, and there's also Beaconsfield. So there's like 2 or 3 different places that give you the world of Tamworth, which is Ricky always describes it as Britporn. It's kind of very quintessential, England, because I think he had an idea. Obviously, he had a very clear idea that this was going to go around the world. So, given his popularity, so he wanted it to feel very British, very English, almost a Richard Curtis level of English Britishness to it. But yeah, so for me as a designer, it's a lovely job because you've got a real exterior, fake interiors, and creating a character with props, giving everything a backstory. He's got a record collection. Tony has a record collection because I knew music's in the scripts. Ricky's got very specific ideas as what pieces of music are going to play at any given point. So I wanted to give him a reason for that. So I gave Tony a record collection. I gave him a book collection because obviously he's a journalist. There's a whole backstory with his wife being a painter. So there's a lot of art on the walls, stuff that she's done because there's, just her, her influence on the house. We've got, when we first find Tony in the house, he's very depressed. All the house plants in the house, if you look closely, they're all dead because he really can't be asked to keep them alive. A bit like himself. There's vertical blinds on the windows at the back of the house, and that's to sort of represent prison bars. And that he's trapped within the environment. And we built a real garden in the studio, which is which is a lovely thing to do. I've done that a couple of times where I get a chance to build forests or gardens in studio, and they're always tremendous fun. And so that idea that the grass is greener, that something is beyond, but he can't get to it because he's trapped behind these sort of imaginary prison bars. So there's a lot of meaning in a lot of the stuff. The Ricky really loved It's a Wonderful Life, and he said to me, I want that to come across in the set somehow. And I wasn't quite sure what he meant, but I found, doing a bit of research, I found a load of color stills from It's a Wonderful Life, because obviously it's a black and white film, but I found a load of stuff on a Google search. So what I then did, I made all the colors of our set the colors of It's a Wonderful Life. So all the paint colors and all the prop colors are based on the colors of those color stills. So that's the kind of thing I took from it. So it's kind of very, very subtle.
Well, I will say it's beautifully put together, and I genuinely mean that, man. And know,
Ricky's really good in it. He's got real pathos in the way he performs it and plays that part. Yeah, it was just tremendous. It was tremendous fun. It wasn't a particularly long job. It's only like 3.5, 4 month job each series. Got to film up at Pinewood, which, as I've already said, it's just a joy to work up at Pinewood Studios. So yeah, I loved it. I'm very, very proud of it. It's one of those shows that I can say to people and people know what I'm talking about, which is not always been the case in my career. People have never heard of things, but yeah, it's I'm really, really chuffed with it. Really, really chuffed with it still.
No, that's cool, man. And so I suppose this leads us on to my last question of the evening. The last question. What's next for Richard?
What's next? Well, I'm just wrapping up on a series called The Chelsea Detective, which, funnily enough, John, is a detective series set in Chelsea.
What? From now on, you tell me everything.
Absolutely. So yeah, I've just done. I'm just coming to the end of that, so I've got another couple of weeks. What else have I got? I'm trying to write a book at the moment, John.
Excellent.
Like me and everybody else, but I've sort of trying to put some thoughts about my career together. There's not actually that many books about set design and working in the art department.
No, and there should be.
There's quite a bit in terms of movies, but not in terms of TV. So my career spans the very late 80s, and is still hopefully current in 2025. So I've got a few years to sort of talk about, and just my experiences and sort of hopefully funny anecdotes. I don't know whether they are, but and I've done about 25,000 words at the moment, so aiming for around 60,000. I don't know what I'm going to do with it once it's done, whether my kids just end up having a copy and that's it, but it's just trying to get something down. I'm trying to get an exhibition away in Worthing about punk. I mean, yes, I know Worthing and punk not necessarily two things that go together.
No, seaside towns and punk, I think, go hand in hand.
There was a bit of a scene down there. There was a recording studio down here that recorded some punk singles. The Stranglers recorded early demos down in Worthing. And
massive mod scene in Worthing as well. Huge mod scene.
And not necessarily punk, but Motorhead recorded, Thin Lizzy recorded in Worthing. So there's a whole interesting story with the punk rock and the explosion of punk rock. So I'm trying to get an exhibition down here for next September.
And you've been doing a few live bits and pieces as well, haven't you?
Yeah, it's kind of, I'm at that stage in my career where I do find myself talking about stuff. I mean, the very fact that you and I are chatting, I guess, is part of that. But I kind of quite enjoy it. I suppose because I'm probably just because I'm familiar with the subject matter. I love enthusing about what I do for a living because and the role the art department play. I'm a big advocate for my department and what my department can bring to a production.
We're going to play out on Bob James's theme from Taxi.
Well, I suppose it's that thing. Now, I'm hoping that I used to watch this in the 80s. I'm fairly sure I used to watch Taxi in the 80s, but it might have started in the late 70s. But it's just beautiful the way that intro leads in.
Oh God, yeah.
And I just think it's timeless telly, and I think obviously in terms of it's a sitcom for want of a better word, so it's that kind of character driven. There's so many characters, in the same way that Friends and Cheers. I mean, this is the thing, you see, Cheers gets all the plaudits, but Taxi sort of predates it, and Taxi essentially you've got half a dozen characters all with their own backstories coming together in this one world. It's exactly the same as Cheers. And I just think there was something very magical, and I love that opening sequence. I think there is a title sequence involving a taxi going across the Brooklyn Bridge, if I'm memory.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
So
well, that's the only one I was aware of, but I never really watched. I watched Taxi when it was repeated in the early '90s on Channel 4. So I but
it was always seeing New York on TV was very exciting in the early '80s for me. Cagney and Lacey, as you said, but Starsky and Hutch, or I'm saying Starsky and Hutch is New York, I think it is. So there was something very exciting, and everybody says it. First time I went to New York was in the late '80s, in '89, and you're literally walking onto a movie set every corner. It feels incredibly familiar.
Yeah.
So Taxi is just beautiful, even though it's got Danny DeVito in, which again is somebody I don't really rate, and again he's a small person.
Oh my God, you have got a problem, mate. You have got a problem.
What is that? That's so funny. I've never thought of. They're all short people.
Yeah,
they're all short people.
So you must hate the Wizard of Oz.
Although I've worked with Warwick Davis. Warwick Davis is lovely. I've worked with him, so he counts.
We're going to play out on Bob James's Angela's theme from Taxi. Thanks very much.